Hi everyone. I am making a sourdough bread video from start to finish. I've had a request from Brandy, who is just starting on her sourdough journey, and I promised her that I would make a video of how I do it. I just want to say from the start that I'm a newbie, so I am by no means a professional. So if you have any complaints or disagreements with how I'm doing things, please bear with me. I'm a baby when it comes to this, like brand new. But this is how I get things started. And today's video is how I activate my starter that I've had sitting in the fridge. And by tomorrow morning, it will be all ready to go, and I'll make a loaf of bread. So I'm just gonna aim you down a little bit more so you can see my island and see what I'm doing, and we'll go from there. Okay, so to start with, I have my scale here. This is how I do it. It's not necessarily how everybody will do it. I have my scale here, and I need 125 grams for my bread recipe. So what I like to do is 30 grams of starter, 60 grams of water, and 60 grams of flour. And then by tomorrow morning, that'll be more than enough for my loaf recipe. So let's start with 30 grams of starter. It's very watery because it's hungry. Okay, 30 grams of starter. And what I like to do is tare my scale and add the water. So 60 grams of water. And I use spring water. You do not want to use water that has chlorine in it. It could kill your starter. So I have a big bottle of spring water that I use, and that's what I'm mixing up my starter with. So 60 grams of water. $61, that's okay. And then what I like to do is take my dough whisk, or my Danish dough whisk, and give it a really good mix. You want to get that starter incorporated in the water. Okay. Put it back on your scale. And what I like to do, let me just go grab a teaspoon. I tear my scale out, and I like to add just a little bit of rye flour because starters love rye flour. So I add about a spoonful of rye flour. And then I personally I mix up half and half wheat flour and bread flour, unbleached bread flour. That's another thing. You do not want to use bleached flour. And then I add this until it gets up to the 60 gram mark. $59. $60. Okay. Now again, I take my Danish dough whisk, give it a really good stir. You want to get all that flour incorporated really well. And you're going to see that it's quite stiff. It's not runny at all, and that is what you want. Okay. So now I take a spatula and I just get everything off of the sides and I give that a really good mix into the dough here, or the starter. Then I take a brand new clean jar and I put this into the new jar. I'm just using a canning funnel here because it makes it more likely that I'm not going to have dough on the sides of my jar, which is what I want. I want nothing on the sides. Okay, get it all in there. Shake it down a little bit. And then all I do is take a canning lid without the screw lid and just set that on top. And then what I do is I have one of these. It's a bread proofer, which means it's a heater for your dough. So what I do is I set this to about 80 degrees, which my starter and my dough seem to love the 80-degree mark. And then you can set your time for whatever you want. I just automatically set it for the 23 hours because, you know, I know it's not going to take 24 hours for this to rise, but that's what I set it at. And then tomorrow morning I'll come back. You'll see how bubbly and doubled in size my starter is, and I'll show you how I turn that into a dough and then into my bread. So I will see you tomorrow morning. Okay, it's the next day. So here's my very happy starter. Remember last night it was down here and now it's more than doubled in size. She's very, very happy. You can see inside, and she smells kind of like wine. Very happy. Hang on one second, I'm going to turn on this light. Okay, so my recipe calls for 125 grams. Oh, hang on, let me turn you a bit so you can see the bowl. I think, there we go. 125 grams of starter. Let me just grab my spatula here. $120. 25. Perfect. Now I need 325 grams of spring water. Oops, 327, that's okay. Take my dough whisk. You really want to incorporate that water and starter. Okay. Now we're going to add 500 grams of bread flour. This is Rogers unbleached bread flour, 500 grams. $500. And then we want 10 grams of salt. Do not forget your salt. Your bread will not taste good. 10 grams. And as you can see, I'm just using the sea salt from Costco. So, want to get your scale out of the way. You're not really supposed to be mixing on your scale. Give that a good mix with your dough whisk. You just want a shaggy dough, but you do want all the flour to be incorporated. So I find with this recipe, I do have to put a little bit more water in there just to get that all incorporated. I haven't measured how much I need to add. I just kind of go by what the dough looks like. So I've got a little spray bottle here full of spring water. Hang on. Oh, come on now. Where are we? There we go. I think. Yes. Okay. I'll try that. Okay, that's looking better. So you want it to be just a little bit wet on top and a really shaggy looking dough. Okay. Get all your dough out of your dough hook here. Don't want to waste any of that. Clean hands. And then what I do is I take my little scraper thing and I just scrape off the sides. And just fold that into the dough. Okay, just like that. Now, I cover it. These are just shower caps that I get off of Amazon. Cover it, and I put it on my dough heater for 30 minutes, and that's when I'll come back and do my first stretch and fold. Okay, so we are back for our first set of stretch and folds, and as you can see, nothing much has changed. But what I like to do is I wet my hand with some water, clean hands, and this is my first set of stretch and folds. You pull up, down, turn your bowl, pull up, down, turn, up, down, up, down. Now I do this 8 times each time I do a set of stretch and folds. And as you can see, as you keep going, it gets harder to lift that dough because you're building up that gluten. And down. Okay, so that's 8. I cover it up, I come back in 30 minutes. Now I do 4 sets of these, 30 minutes in between. I'll come back for the last set and then tell you what I do after that. Okay. Take 6. This is Future Dawn, realizing she has no sound on this section of the video. This is my 4th and final round of stretch and folds. So I wet my palm down so that it doesn't stick to the dough, and I do my 8 turns of stretch and folds. And at this point, it has become quite a nice smooth dough, and it's very workable because I've developed the gluten with all those stretch and folds. So I go around the bowl, gentle, gentle. You don't want to rip the dough. You just want to nicely hold it up and then fold it back down. Now in a minute, I'm going to go and wash my hands. That's when I realized that I don't have a microphone working. I changed microphones and it still wasn't working, so I didn't realize that. So I'm scraping down my bowl to make sure that all the ingredients are in my dough ball. And now I'm going to explain. Sourdough is much different from your typical yeast dough. With a yeast dough, it says allow to rise until double in size. That usually takes an hour and a half to 2 hours. You come down, you punch it down, and you form it into a loaf, and you let it rise for another 30 minutes. In the case of sourdough, you are going to leave it on the counter. I'm going to leave it on my heating pad. It could take up to 10, 12 hours because you're not necessarily looking for it to double in size. What you're looking for is a domed, D-O-M-E-D. You're looking for a domed dough that's bubbly, jiggly, and easily comes away from the side of the bowl. And that could take anywhere from 6 to 10 hours. In my case, I think it took about 7-8 hours. I can't remember exactly what time. So now I'm going to leave the dough on the counter, on my heating pad, and I come back when it's ready for the next step. Okay, we are back, and this is what my dough looks like now. It's got lots of bubbles on top here, and it comes away from the sides. It's still rather sticky, but yeah, that seems to happen every time I make bread. I don't know if that's right or not, and it's very jiggly. So what I like to do is I use rice flour to just kind of sprinkle on top of the dough a little bit so that it's less sticky and doesn't stick to my breadboard. And I did a bit of a deep dive into why rice flour is usually used by sourdough people instead of wheat flour. And it's because rice flour is gluten-free. So it's not going to absorb into my dough as quickly as a wheat flour would, which means that it's not going to absorb the rice flour when I put it in my banneton, and then it sticks to my banneton, which we do not want. So we're going to see, oops, I'm going to put a little bit down on my board as well. Let it drop out. And this looks like it might need some help. Hang on a sec. Get my little scraper here. Just help it out. This is quite sticky this time. I don't know what I did different, but could be anything. Could be the dampness of your house, the dampness of the weather outside. And it's been raining pretty bad for a few days here, so that could have a lot to do with it. There. Just help it fall out. There we go. And this smells very much like some wine fermenting, which is exactly the smell that you want. You want that fermentation smell. Okay, so now you just kind of want to fold it into itself, make a ball like this, and then you kind of want to flatten it out. And any big bubbles you can pop, because that means holes in your bread, and you don't want, I mean, you want some holes in a sourdough loaf, but you don't want a bunch of big holes. So you can just pop those big ones. And you fold like this one over like this over like this, and then you roll it up. And you can put some tension on that as you're rolling it up. Fold in your corners, roll it up. Now, I have not mastered this, but it's a push-pull action where you want to have some tension on the top of your dough. On this, you don't want to tear it, but you do want some tension. Just up and around and back. Up, around, back. Up, around, back. And then you see the big bubbles here, you can give them a little bit of a gentle pop. You put some rice flour in your banneton. Just kind of spread it around. And then plop your dough in, like this. And then you do still want to have some tension, so you can do like you're stitching it together like this, just to create more tension. Then you put your shower cap back on, and this you put in the fridge. Now I'm going to leave this in the fridge overnight and probably into tomorrow afternoon, maybe 2-3 o'clock. From what I understand, like I said, I'm a newbie, but from what I understand, the longer you leave it in the fridge, the more sour the dough is going to be. And my husband and I really like that sourness that you get from sourdough bread. So into the fridge for your overnight fermentation. And I will be back when I when I take this out of the fridge and take it out of the banneton, give it a slice on top and get it into the oven. So I will be back tomorrow. Okay, so here we are. This has been in the fridge overnight, and it is about 1 p.m. and I have preheated my oven to 450, and I like to preheat it for about 45 minutes because you want to make sure that all the oven is at 450 and ready to go. So this is my dough now. You can see that even in the fridge it does do some rising. And I have a little silicone sling that I use. So I just go like this and then plunk it over. And there you go. There is my loaf. Now, most people put a lot of rice flour all over their bread before they slice it at the top. I don't. The first loaf I made, I did, and my husband and I didn't really like all that flour, so I just put a little bit on, just enough so that it doesn't stick to my bread pans, and that's enough for us. Clean hands. Now I've got an X-Acto knife with a brand new blade, and we're just gonna do a cut. I should probably get a proper knife for this. I think, what are they called now? I can't remember the name of them. I should probably get one of those. So you just want to cut it because a lot of expansion takes place when sourdough is cooking. Let's just put the cap back on that. And I'm going to I do mine in a loaf pan. I know that's not what everybody does, but that's what I prefer because we like a loaf that rises up a lot instead of spreads out. So that's what I do when I bake my sourdough is I get it into a regular loaf pan. Kind of plunk it in there a little bit, make sure that slit is open. Now what I do is I put another loaf pan on top, and I put it in at 450 for about 20 minutes. Then I take the lid off. A lot of recipes will say have the lid off for another 20 minutes, but I check it every 5 minutes because, again, my husband and I don't like the really dark, crusty crusts. We like it to be more of just a nice brown, not really, really dark brown. So I put this in for about 20 minutes. I'll come back, take the lid off for 5 minutes, look at it, and decide if I want it to be with the lid off for another 5 minutes. And the whole time I'm going to take the temperature, because you want the internal temperature to read around 200 degrees. That's when you know that your loaf is done. So I'm going to get this all baked up and then I will come back. Okay guys, here is the final result. Here's my, it's very hot, just came out of the oven. This is my loaf of bread. That's what the bottom looks like. It's not too terribly brown, which is how we like it. And you don't cut into it for at least an hour. 2 hours is probably better, because it's going to make your bread gummy if you cut into it while it's still really, really hot. And it's going to be hard not to cut into it because it smells absolutely delightful and you're going to want to chow down as soon as you can. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've got any comments, any suggestions, anything you'd like to see me cook or do on my channel here, let me know. My next idea is to make a rye sourdough, so I'll probably record that one and put it up too. So all I can say is get baking. You will enjoy it, and thank you so much for joining me on this video here. I will talk to you again soon.